Nobody likes to feel disappointed. Maybe you're finding out you haven't got a job you thought you nailed the interview for. Perhaps your favourite TV show ended on a total bummer cliffhanger. Or maybe you are your mum. However, there's a whole other layer of disappointment that comes with putting down a big wad of money on a game you've been looking forward to, only to end up more disappointed than people who buy streamer endorsed cookies. That said, 2023 has been a great year for video games, with plenty of all-time classics launching throughout these past few months. Games like Baldur's Gate 3, Street Fighter VI, Hi-Fi Rush, Star Wars Jedi Survivor not on PC, Final Fantasy XVI, Pikmin 4, Armored Core 6, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom have earned plenty of critical acclaim, alongside remakes like Resident Evil 4 and Dead Space. It's a lot of good game. Unfortunately, with every success that occurs within the gaming industry, there's disappointment too, and there's been a good amount to be disappointed with during these past 12 months. From games to a lot of crappy business decisions, the negativity was hard to avoid this year. With that in mind, here's the most disappointing games of 2023. Bear in mind that disappointing does not equal worse, as worse games than this get launched every day on some storefronts. We see you, 99% of all visual novels released on Steam, ya grot. Number 10, coming in pretty hot with Starfield. You'd probably be expecting games like Crime Boss Rocket City or that Game Mill King Kong game to be on this list, and while they might be just a little bit rubbish, let's be honest with ourselves, no one was expecting those games to be Game of the Year contenders. It's hard to be disappointed with a game when the bar was already set so low, so let us instead talk about a game that raised a lot more expectations: Starfield. Bethesda's first new IP in decades, Starfield was looking set to be the next big blockbuster for both Bethesda and Microsoft as a whole, but now, a few months after the game has launched, Starfield has already seemingly faded away from the public consciousness. The fact that Skyrim has had more players on Steam recently than Starfield says it all about how much staying power this space RPG really had. Nobody here is saying that Starfield is a bad game, as the improvements made to the gunplay and movement over a game like Fallout are immediately noticeable. Playing Starfield means accepting a reality that their depiction of space is mostly empty and quite boring. The vast majority of the planets and moons are just barren landmasses, with the occasional ancient ruin or pirate outpost scattered every 500 meters to a kilometer apart, making exploration feel like a bloody chore. Why are there no cars in this, or like a buggy, or like a bike, or like a moon surfboard or something? When the game's core mechanic is its least engaging feature, you're in a bit of trouble. Number 9, Atlas Fallen. Honey, we have Elden Ring crossed with SSX at home. Deck 13 had made a decent name for themselves in the past, largely thanks to their work on the sci-fi Souls-like series The Surge, which carved a wonderful niche within the hardcore AAA space. It's no wonder that some were excited about the potential of Atlas Fallen then, which looks set to be more of a AAA release fully backed by Focus. Unfortunately, you'd be forgiven for thinking it hadn't even launched yet, as Atlas Fallen dropped with about as much fanfare as a fart in a tornado. Despite an impressive looking reveal trailer and the promise of an open world action RPG that boasted fun traversal and unique combat, Atlas Fallen failed to capture the attention of pretty much anyone when it launched. From the story to the world and its gameplay, Atlas Fallen is just bland. It's nowhere near the worst game of 2023, but disappointing it most certainly is. However, Atlas Fallen's lackluster reception might have been affected by another disappointment that launched earlier in the year that we'll get to later. If you're looking for the dictionary definition of a 6 out of 10 video game, this might just be it. It's not bad, but it's like a sandwich with a single slice of ham in it. You'll eat it, but you won't be thankful for it. You'll resent whoever gave it to you just a little bit, you know? You'll be like, thanks, I guess. I would have preferred a tiramisu. Do you really know me? I don't think you do. Number 8, AEW Fight Forever. Look, we're totally fine with the visuals in this game, despite what some people might think. We don't need to see sweat beads pouring down Jon Moxley's crack before he spontaneously starts bleeding, but Fight Forever was a big letdown everywhere else as well. Wrestling fans are no strangers to disappointment, especially Cody Rhodes fans, whether it's matches that don't live up to the hype or storylines that lack a worthy payoff. Wrestling game fans have been disappointed too, especially with the early days of the WWE 2K franchise, so when AEW announced that they'd be partnering with UKAS to create a wrestling game throwback, fans were excited. The end result though, AEW Fight Forever, left a lot to be desired. AEW Fight Forever aimed to emulate the likes of N64 classic WWF No Mercy a little bit too accurately, and trying to release a game in 2023 that plays, and some would argue looks like an N64 game for 50 plus quid is a bit of a bold ask. With its overly simplistic gameplay, lack of modes and match types, along with an inferior creation suite compared to WWE 2K, AEW Fight Forever ran out of steam before it entered the ring. We'll give it one thing though, it is a lot better than the TNA game, a lot better. That's like saying a cold is better than cholera though, it's kind of a given. Number 7, The Walking Dead, Destinies.
Man, hey Herschel, man, let me ask you something.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
While we might have mentioned fellow Game Mill title Skull Island Rise of Kong in the Starfield entry as being one of the worst games of the entire year, that isn't the publisher's only entry into the world of crap in 2023. The Walking Dead fans, specifically of the TV show, might have had hopes that The Walking Dead Destinies wasn't going to be just another rubbish game in a series that spawned countless mobile titles and Survival Instinct, but those hopes were dashed quicker than you can open a barn door. Pitched as a game that would allow players to rewrite the storyline of key events in the TV show to see how things would play out, The Walking Dead Destinies failed to properly utilise its admittedly lofty premise. Being able to change the storyline could have been pretty cool, as everyone probably would have liked to kill off Carl a little earlier and given Glenn a massive helmet, but that involves actually playing the game. The gameplay is about as janky and hopeless as you'd expect from a Game Mill title, with the visuals looking like they're straight out of the PS2 bargain bin. But given how the devs who work with Game Mill have been reportedly made to crunch on games like Rise of Kong, the fault should lie squarely at the publisher's feet. Number 6, Payday 3.
But I mean, I can get inside the car.
We don't know when, but Starbreeze and Overkill just forgot how to launch a video game that worked at some point. While not as bad as Overkill's The Walking Dead, Payday 3 is miles behind what you would call a good launch. Starbreeze's hit co-op shooter series Payday has been a core part of many a gamer group, so the promise of Payday 3 and even more heisting action with your friends was naturally going to be one of the most anticipated games of 2023. Unfortunately for Starbreeze, they haven't been able to stick the landing, and with predecessor Payday 2 boasting a lot more players on Steam than the sequel, things aren't looking good for this third effort. While those who have properly played Payday 3 think that the gameplay mechanics and improvements are great, at launch the community was decimated by a wave of matchmaking issues and always online requirements, boo, which made actually playing the game a laborious experience. The initial patch slated to improve things was delayed multiple times over too, ultimately pushing the patience of its player base just a bit too far. Considering that Payday 3 exceeded sales expectations though, expect Payday 3 to be one of gaming's redemption stories in 2024. But for now, the best thing to come out of this entire game, by far, is this clip.
Hey, there's a guard. Watch the guard. Watch the guard. Guard. Hey, there's a guard. Guard over there. Guard. There's the guard. Watch the guard. Guard. There's the guard. Guard over there. Watch the guard. There's the guard. Guard.
Number 5, Immortals of Aam. What if Ghostwire Tokyo, but with none of its own character and the 30-year-old guy pretending to be a teenager out of Never Have I Ever in the lead role instead? Also, why not make it sound like something single mums sell on Facebook? It's always great when first-person shooters try to do something a little bit different with the core formula, which is why Immortals of Aam seemed so interesting from the outset. Instead of shooting guns, players wielded magical spells to defeat their enemies in a campaign that could only be described as Call of Divination. Look, that was the only magic word beginning with D I could think of. What else is there? The Call of David Copperfield? I don't know, it works, alright? It works. Despite the out-of-this-world magical premise, however, many critics derided Immortals of Aam as being a bit too formulaic, which is practically a death sentence for any game that's trying to make you invest heavily in its fantastical premise. Poor in-game performance at launch only exacerbated the problems for Immortals of Aam, and weak overall sales led to nearly half of the developers at Ascendant Studio being laid off, something that had become a bit of a theme during the year. Number 4, Forspoken.
I just move shit with my freaking mind!
The game that possibly made people gun-shy about Atlas Fallen, Forspoken's fall from grace could theoretically be seen from space. A lot of people were skeptical about Forspoken's quality ahead of launch to begin with, largely due to the overly quippy MCU-esque dialogue in what appeared to be a semi-serious fantasy RPG, but the jokey script that feels like it got lost on the way towards Taika Waititi's desk turned out to be the least of Forspoken's worries. While the magical parkour gameplay was almost universally praised, especially as the only thing that made traversing the mostly empty world somewhat fun, the combat was seen as Forspoken's weakest aspect by many. Compared to some other games on this list, it's certainly not a terrible game, and the developers have been putting in work to improve the experience, but compared to the pre-release hype, Forspoken was a massive disappointment. The lackluster sales are a testament to that. Forspoken isn't an absolutely terrible game, but it's just not one that's going to be spoken about for much longer than 5 minutes. Speaking of, we wish Cuff would shut the cuff up for 5 minutes. Number 3, Wanted Dead. Wanted this to be a good game. Reward, no disappointment. A big disappointment in the lovers of janky games community. Hello, it's us. Wanted Dead had the potential to be an enjoyable blend of character action titles like Ninja Gaiden and third-person shooters such as Fortnite, with a dash of Like a Dragon-esque minigames thrown in for good measure. It's a pretty potent cocktail, and if all elements managed to blend together well, Wanted Dead would have been a real unsung hit of 2023. The grim reality, however, is that Wanted Dead somehow managed to make the much maligned Wii U title Devil's Third look like a competent and well-made release. Eesh. Some critics pointed to the game being too hard, which it certainly was during some of the game's boss fights, but Wanted Dead's real flaw is that none of the gameplay just actually worked. Enemies felt too spongy for guns, but you took too much damage to focus on purely melee, making the entire experience feel like a slog. Also, the rhythm action minigames were out of sync. Could you imagine if Yakuza's karaoke games were out of sync? Sega would be burned to the ground. Also, has anyone seen what Devil's Third is selling for these days? I mean, what the hell's going on there? Number 2, Redfall.
Feeling right again.
When Arcane, creators of some of the most inventive and unique first-person action games of the past decade, announced that they'd be creating a 4-player co-op shooter, opinion was split into 2 camps. You had the first camp, who were excited to see Arcane apply their trademark skill at creating imaginative gameplay mechanics to a co-op structure, while the second camp thought that the studio had overextended and that a co-op open world shooter was too steep a departure to work. Yeah, guess which camp were disappointed come May 2023. Upon launch, Redfall was overwhelmingly lambasted by both the gaming press and the wider community at large, with players citing issues with the characters and story, the undercooked looter-shooter mechanics, and the baffling fact that progress through the campaign was only tied to the host. Didn't we figure this out in like 2012? Indeed, Borderlands had the co-op progression issue sorted out well over a decade ago, making Redfall feel like a step backwards in a lot of ways. Arcane have worked kind of hard, but not as hard as you might expect, on improvements to the game throughout the year, but the damage has seemingly been done. Arcane, lads, just make Dishonored free. Not everything needs to be a co-op live service shooter, alright? Also, make games that work again. That was good when you did that, I enjoyed it. And at number 1, The Lord of the Rings, Golem. Maybe we were all a bit too harsh on sexy Shelob, right? No, not hard like that, you bloody grotter. Get your mind out of the mines of Moria. A prequel Lord of the Rings game following everyone's favourite cave-dwelling Riddler was always going to either sink or swim, sink if you're Samwise, but no one was prepared for Golem to hit the bottom of the ocean when it did sink. Apart from the people who crunched to work on it, who apparently saw it coming like the Titanic saw the iceberg. Considered by Metacritic to be among the worst reviewed games of 2023, and perhaps one of the worst high-profile game launches in years, The Lord of the Rings Golem is a disappointment in every sense of the word. Golem could have been panned by everyone just for the game's woeful performance and technical issues, and for having some truly Windows XP font choices, but if those were the only problems, it wouldn't be ranking so highly, or low, on this list. Instead, critics and all 4 of its players alike found the game's endless fetch quests, pointless dialogue and uneven pacing to be an utter chore. Perhaps the most disappointing part of all though was the apology issued by the devs that was actually written by AI, with the game's reportedly oppressive project leads providing an absolutely awful work environment where a AAA game was expected on a barely AA budget. Terrible work all round, really. The Lord of the Rings franchise is such a huge franchise that's begging to be explored further in video games. Make another conquest, you massive cowards, but the sheer failure of a game like Golem is inevitably going to make future developers more precious in their future. Ooh. And that was our list for the most disappointing games in the year of our Lord Bubsy 2023. I don't think I've ever known a year quite like this in video games ever, where there's so many highs, but there's just the lowest of lows. It's like Thanos balanced, really. It's just kind of comforting to have like so many shitty licensed games again. I feel like 12. It's magic. What was your most disappointingest game of the year? Be sure to let us know down in the comments, down below.